All right, it's been a while. I have an update, small update, very small, not much to talk about really. I might ramble a little bit here though because I'm running into all kinds of issues, and it's been a struggle to be honest. Because I'm learning as I go along with this. And actually, I thought Bevy was going to be the hardest part because I've never used this game engine before, but this has actually been the easiest part. The hardest part has been working with a scalar field and trying to turn it into meshes, and having everything work correctly, and making the code make sense and making it clean and having the math all work correctly. I realized that my math before was had some flaws. I was using an individual value, a floating point number, to represent the distance between each point in the scalar field, or each scalar. And those correspond one-to-one with vertices. So if you look at the ground here, you look at the terrain, and you see these points kind of sticking out here, each of these points is a scalar. And you might notice now the level of detail of this terrain is lower. And it's kind of easiest to tell when you look at the lighting. The lighting calculations are a little bit, they're a little weird now because they attempt automatically to make it look smoother than it actually is. And it usually does a pretty good job, but when the level of detail is this low, it looks it looks a little retro, which is kind of cool. But what I would my goal is for this level of detail. I've decreased the level of detail by four times, or another way to put it is I've increased the scalar distance, the distance between each of these points, by 4 times. So it's much lower level detail now than it was before. As I mentioned, I had to rewrite some of the code because my math was wrong. And this is the problem, with testing. When you have a constant value like that, like my scalar distance value was just 1.0 when I was doing all of the testing before. So it was never changing, and that's a very easy value to work with because if you multiply or divide by 1.0, it's like you don't even have, it cancels out, right? So as soon as I started testing it with different values, I started running into problems, and I realized that my math was wrong. But now I have it more or less. I have the math correct now, but there's other problems. I need to go in and obviously fix some of the code or rewrite it. It's not that it's wrong necessarily, but I need to, I think, take a different approach, because what I want to do is I want ideally the level of detail close to the camera should be high, and then as you get further away, you look at chunks in the distance and they should decrease level of detail or have fewer scalars, larger distance between each scalar. And then once you get really far away, then you can just have some like really low detail terrain. That is the goal, but it is complicated. There's several issues with this. The first one I'm dealing with is just the fact that that having chunks of different sizes in a grid together is obviously a challenge. Now I could just have all of the chunks be the same size but different levels of detail. I'm not sure if that's the best approach though, because I think that might create more that might decrease the frame rate more. I think it's better to have the meshes be individual meshes be larger. So yeah, there's a lot to I probably shouldn't even be thinking about that. I should be trying to simplify this as much as possible and just get it working. And then once it's working, then I can approach it differently. But the problem is, anytime you take one approach and then you try to improve on it and you realize that you should have taken a different approach, and you have to go back and rewrite the code. It's definitely a challenge. But yeah, as you can see, the render distance, I've increased it by quite a lot. But even at this render distance, the frame rate has taken a bit of a hit, which is not ideal. If I go lower, you can kind of see like this is definitely a large render distance, or a long render distance. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to approach this. I'm running into multiple issues at the same time, and that's not even to mention another issue that I've already brought up at one point is the fact that having chunks next to each other that have different levels of detail it's going to create noticeable holes in the terrain. So I need to have some logic in there to deal with that, and there's just lots of stuff to deal with on this. So I'm definitely a bit overwhelmed, and I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to approach all of this. It does seem clear to me now why there aren't many games using this marching cubes algorithm. It seems the actual generation of the meshes, which was the bottleneck before my last few videos, that's what I was mostly dealing with, mostly focused on trying to improve that. But it doesn't seem like that's the main. It doesn't seem that'll be the main issue. It seems that having lots of chunks on the screen at one time is already affecting the frame rate, even at this low level of detail. So yeah, it's a shame, I was hoping this would run better. maybe there's something I can do, but yeah, I'd really like it to be possible to have high level of detail near, close by, and then gradually decrease it. Maybe I can find a good balance, and I can have some settings so that people with better hardware than mine can enjoy some higher level of detail. But I really don't think there's any way I can optimize the actual runtime. And it is worth mentioning again that I am recording. I'm doing a screen recording, so that is obviously going to affect the frame rate as well. I think once I turn off the recording, it does go back up to 60. But again, this is just pretty low level of detail, pretty low render distance overall. So yeah, a little bit concerned about what the end result here is going to end up looking like, but I'll figure something out.